Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey, and in this video we're going to create the Mercenary Bounty Bar from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. We're going to make it in the UI with a script to dynamically modify the number of mercenaries and the size of the bar between them. Let's begin. So in Assassin's Creed Odyssey there is a bounty bar which is part of the mercenary system. Essentially it starts off empty and increases every time you are caught doing a crime. If it reaches a certain amount, a mercenary will come after you. It's a pretty simple bar, but still requires some interesting logic. So we're going to make it in the UI. I have my basic scene set up. Over here I have the canvas which is being rendered through this UI camera. For an in-depth view on how this is set up, you can check out the simple UI setup video. Then in here I have some textures. First I have a bar border, which will go on top of our bar. Then I have a gray and red helmet. And finally a simple white gradient, which we're going to tint it in red as the bar fills up. So let's first set up the bar in the editor and then we'll make the code to control it. So in our canvas, let's begin by creating an empty game object. This will be our container, so let's name it Mercenary Bar. Inside, let's create another empty game object. This one, let's name it Bar. And this is the container for our bar. So let's set the size to 70. 15. Okay. Inside, let's make another empty game object. This will be our bar background. And for this one, let's add an image and add the white gradient texture. For the size, let's expand it to fill up the entire parent. So set everything to 0 and write that the bar is occupying the bar size. So we can change the parent and the inside changes with it. Okay. Now let's duplicate it and make the bar filled, which again is stretched to occupy everything. And for this one, let's tint it in red. Now in here on the image type, instead of being in simple, let's set it to filled. On the fill method, let's choose horizontal and fill origin from the left. This way we can easily set the fill amount to increase and decrease the size of our bar. Okay, so now the last thing we need is a border. So let's duplicate the background, name this the border, and drag the bar border sprite. Now, as you can see in here, the texture looks a bit stretched. In there on the left side, it's quite stretched, and there is quite small. We can fix this by going into the bar border texture and open the sprite editor. And in here, if we drag on the sides, we can essentially set a border. We can also go down here and simply set the border to 5 on every side. So essentially, we are saying do not stretch these corners in here and only stretch the empty space in the middle. So if we hit apply and go back, so now select the border, and here on the image type, instead of simple, let's set it to sliced, and now as you can see, everything is scaled much better. Okay, so this is our bar fully created in the editor. This will be the template that we're going to use to duplicate and modify through our code. So let's rename this from bar and make it a bar template. Let's add a new UI image for the helmet. And the helmet will simply have the helmet sprite. Let's set it on 7070 and just like that. Alright, so our home bar is set up in the editor. As you can see, we got the bar template, which has a background, then it has a filled color, which we can increase and decrease. Then it has a border, just to make it look nice. And then outside of the bar, we have the helmet template, which can either be in gray, or then we will switch to red when the bar is filled. So now that everything is set up, let's work on the code. So let's go into the scripts folder and create a new C# script, and let's name this the Mercenary Bar. Let's drag it onto our Mercenary Bar, yep, like that, and check out the code. Okay, so in here the first thing we're going to do is grab a reference to our templates. So let's go up here and make a private rect transform, and we're going to grab the bar template, and then also grab the helmet template. We're going to grab it on the void awake. So bar template equals transform dot find our bar template and get the component of type rect transform, and do the same for the helmet. Alright, now just for testing, let's try duplicating our bar. So in here, do a rect transform for the new bar, which will be an instantiate of our bar template, and into the parent, which is this transform. And then let's set the anchored position to be somewhere on the left side. Alright, let's test and see if the new bar pops up. Yep, there's the original bar, our template, and there's the new instantiated bar. Okay, So we are now correctly duplicating our template. So now let's go back into our code, and down here, let's make a new class named bar. So a private class named bar. Now, this class is responsible for handling the logic of a single bar, and the total mercenary bar will be composed of several of these bars. So inside, let's add some member variables to store the bar and helmet transforms. So a private rect transform for the bar rect transform. And we're going to receive them on the constructor. Okay, so this is the basic composition of our class. Now let's go up here onto the mercenary bar class, and let's make a function to create a bar. So make a private bar create bar. Inside, let's do what we did for testing up here, which is we instantiate a new bar from the template. Let us also instantiate the helmet. And finally create a bar object. So bar object equals a new bar, give it the bar rect transform, and then the helmet rect transform. And finally we return our bar object. Okay, so now let's go up here, and first of all let's hide our templates. So we're going to do bar template.gameObject.setActive to false, so that the templates are hidden by default. Do the same for the helmet. And in here, when we instantiate, we actually need to re-enable it. So go back into the game object, set active. And for this one, which is the one that is instantiated, set it to true, and do the same for the helmet. So then let's go up here and create a new bar, just like that. Okay, so let's test, and we should be able to see a new bar along with a new helmet. Yep, there they are, a new bar and a new helmet. And if we hit stop, you can see that the templates are still there, but they are disabled, and the clones have been instantiated. Okay, so far so good. Now on the create bar, let's receive a position and a size for the bar. So a vector 2 for the anchored position and another vector 2 for the size. Let's set the bar.anchored position into our anchored position and set the bar rect transform.size delta to our size. Now for the helmet, we want to place the helmet at the end of the bar. So let's set the helmet anchored position to be at anchored position, which is the starting bar position. Then let's shift it to the side by size.x. So you have a bar on the anchored position with a certain size received in here. Then you place the helmet to the right of the bar by using anchored position and offsetting it on the x by the same as the size. So let's go up here and create a new bar. And let's place it on 0, 0 with a size of, let's say, 7018. Now, one last thing is we need to go in here onto our bar template. And right now the pivot is in the middle, but we want it to be on the left side. So let's simply click here and press shift, click on the left side, and there you go. The pivot is now correctly on the left side. So let's run and see our new bars. Yep, there you go. There's a new bar, and right at the end, there's the helmet. And if we check out the positions, you can see that the size is in 70 and 18, and the helmet template is on 70 right there. Okay. So now that we are correctly placing it, let's deal with filling up the bar and changing the helmet icon. So back in our bar class, let's make a function to set the fill amount. So in here, do a public void set fill amount, and we're going to receive a float for the fill amount. This fill amount goes from 0 to 1, so 0 is completely empty and 1 is completely full, regardless of the actual size of our bar. Now in order to set the fill amount, we need a reference to the image that is placed on the bar. So let's go up here, grab an image, and now the image we have to do using the Unity engine.ui. So make a bar filled image, and let's grab the bar filled image in here on the bar rect transform.find the bar filled, and get the component of type image. Then we can use that image component to go in here and set the fill amount to be this fill amount. Now on awake, let's set this to 0f so the bar starts off completely empty. Okay, now let's go up here. After we create the bar, let's first grab a reference to it. And now let's test filling it up. Now, in order to test, I'm going to use the function updater, which is part of the using codemonkey.utils, which, as always, you can grab for free from unitycodemonkey.com. Now, the function updater lets me create an action which will be triggered on every update. So on every update, let's increase the fill amount. So let's go up here, create a float for the fill amount, start off at 0f, and in here on every update, let's increase the fill amount by, let's say, time.delta time divided by 4f. So essentially the bar will completely fill up after 4 seconds. So after increasing, let's go into the bar and set the fill amount to be this fill amount. All right, let's test and see if it fills up in 4 seconds. Okay, there it is, and yep, as you can see, it is filling up and it is now completely full. Okay, great. So now that we have the bar correctly filling up, let's deal with the helmet. So back in our code, up here on our mercenary bar, let's add 2 serialized fields for the gray and red helmets. So make a serialized field for the private sprite, gray helmet sprite, and do another one for the red helmet sprite. Now we're going to pass those and store those on our bar. So in here, they don't have to be serialized. We're going to receive those in our constructor. And let's send them when we construct our bar. So first send the gray and then send the red helmet. All right, so we now have references to our both sprites in here. So let's make some helper functions for setting the color. So make a private void set helmet gray, and then we're going to have a private void set helmet red. So for that one, let's go up here and grab an image for the helmet image. Now the helmet image is in the helmet rect transform.get component of type image. Okay, so we grab the helmet image, and in here we set the helmet image sprite to be our gray helmet sprite, and here set it to the red helmet sprite. All right, so now in here, when we set our fill amount, if the fill amount, if it is greater than 1, that means the bar is completely filled. So let's set the helmet to red. If not, let's set the helmet to gray. All right, so on our constructor, we are receiving references to both of our sprites. Then when we set the fill amount, we check if it is bigger than 1. If so, it changes to red. If not, it sticks with gray. So again, we are testing up here, increasing the fill amount, and it's completely full after 4 seconds. So when it is completely full, the helmet should turn red. So now first, let's go up here and drag the references for the gray and the red and run the code. Yep, filling up, and now it goes up, and yep, there you go, the helmet turned red. So the helmet turned red, which is correct, but it seems like it took a bit too long. That's because of how we created our bar. Now, if we pause the scene and we check out the scene view, as you can see, the bar stretches behind the helmet. So essentially, whilst the bar is filling this part up, you can't really see it, but it's still not fully filled up. So we need to make our bar a tiny bit smaller so that we can actually see it fully fill up, and as soon as it gets completed, it turns the helmet into red. So for that, let's go into our create bar function. And now in here, let's set a different size for our bar. Instead of being this size, let's set a new vector 2. And for the x, let's use size.x minus a certain padding amount. So let's say 10f. And for the y, let's use the same as the size.y. This way the bar will end slightly before the helmet. So let's test again. And yep, there it is, filling up. And when it gets to the edge of the helmet, yep, there you go, it turned red. So if we go into the scene view, you can see that the bar is now smaller. We could still make it a tiny bit smaller, but just about that is good. Okay. All right, so we essentially have one bar pretty much fully working. Now let's see how we can set up multiple bars one after the other. Now creating multiple bars is simple since we already have this function to create a single one. All we need to do is call this function multiple times. So creating the bars is simple, but the logic of the fill has to go from one bar to the next. So for that, we're essentially going to define a total number for the complete bar and divide it by a certain amount for each bar. So let's go up here and make some variables. We're going to have a private float for the fill value max. This is the complete amount in this mercenary bar. So the total value for entire mercenary bar. Then we're going to have a private float fill value. Now this one is the currently filled value. And finally, we're going to have a private float for the fill value per bar. And this is the filled value amount per each bar. So in order to calculate all these values, let's make a private void setup. This function will initialize our bar. Now in our setup, we're going to receive the setup values. So we need the float for the fill value max. This again is the total fill value used in this mercenary bar, and then an int for the bar amount. So in here, let's set the this.fillValueMax to be fill value max. For the regular fill value, let's set it to 0, so it starts off empty. And for the fill value per bar, it's going to be the fill value max divided by the bar amount. So essentially, if the fill value is, let's say, 100, and we have 5 bars, then essentially we're going to have 100 divided by 5. We're going to have each bar will have a value of 20. So after calculating that, let's create the number of bars that we need. Now in order to store them, we need to go up here and make a private list for our bars. This will be our bar list. So let's instantiate our bar list and then do a simple for int e equals 0 less than the bar amount, I++, okay. Now in here we need to create the bars and place them correctly. So a vector2 for the bar size, which we're going to set the same thing that we've been using, so 7018. Now we need to place them correctly, so let's define a float for the bar size offset. This is essentially that little buffer that we have between the bar size. So let's set it to 10f. And for the vector2 for the bar anchored position. For the x, will be on bar size.x multiplied by I. For the y, we got 0, but now for the x, if we do it like this, then we have each bar hugging each other, so we need to add the bar size offset. So it's the bar size.x plus the bar size offset, and then the whole thing multiplied by the index of this bar. Then we get a bar equals create a bar. We're going to create it using the bar anchored position and the bar size. Then we add that bar to the bar list.add our bar. Okay. So on our setup, we receive a maximum value and a number of bars to split that value in. We calculate these values to see how much per bar we're going to have, and then we simply instantiate that certain amount of bars. So now let's go up here and let's comment out this testing code, and instead let's do a setup. Now for the setup, let's give it the maximum value of 100f, and let's fill it with 5 bars. So let's run the code and see if we have correctly spawned 5 bars. Yep, there you go, we have 5 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They are all empty and all the helmets are in gray. Now as you can see, we got a slight issue with the helmets here. The hierarchy in the UI is what defines the sorting order, so essentially we need to take all of the helmets and set them all as the last sibling, and then it looks correct. So let's sort that problem. So in here there are several ways that we can set the helmets to the end. We could, for example, have a container for all the bars and another one for all the helmets, and have each container one sorted with the other one. But in here the simplest way is simply to set the bar transform to be essentially lower in the hierarchy, so the bars always show up before. So let's simply do that, set as first sibling. So whenever we instantiate a helmet, it goes to the end. Whenever we instantiate a bar, it also goes to the end, so we send it back on top. So let's see if our helmets are on top of the bars. And yep, there you go. We got the helmets on top of the bars. And as you can see in the scene view, they're all like that. They're all on top of that one. And first we got all the bar template clones and then all the helmets. Okay, great. So with our 5 empty bars set up, now we need to set up the logic to increase the fill between the bars. So in our code, up here on the code for the mercenary bar, let's create a function to set the fill value. So make a private void set fill value. And here we're going to receive a float for the fill value. And let's also set the member fill value to be this fill value, so we keep track of the fill value. Okay. So now in here is where we need to do some calculations. We need to figure out how much each bar should be filled. So essentially, let's begin by doing a cycle for int equals 0, going through all of the bars on the bar list. Okay. So bar equals bar list of I. All right. Now we need to figure out how much this specific bar should be filled. So let's begin by calculating the float for the bar value min. This is the minimum value that this bar represents. So that minimum value is essentially just the I, which is the index of this bar, multiplied by the fill value per each bar. So bar 0 starts on 0 multiplied by, let's say, 20, so it starts off in 0. Then we have the bar value max, which is the next index, so I plus 1 multiplied by the fill value. So the bar on index 0 starts off at 0 times 20, so 0, and goes up to 1 times 20, goes up to 20. So the first bar represents from 0 to 20. For the second one, you have 1 times 20, so 20, and then 2 times 20, so 40. So the second one goes from 20 to 40, and so on. All right, so using that, we can now do the logic. So if the fill value that we receive is under the bar value min, then essentially that means the fill value doesn't reach this bar. So if it doesn't reach this bar, then set the bar fill amount to be 0f because it is completely empty. If it is not under the bar value min, then we check if the fill value, if it is bigger than the bar value max. If it is, then that means the fill value completely fills this bar, and set the bar.setFillAmount to be 1f so that it is completely filled up. And if it is not under or above, then that means the fill value is somewhere in between. So let's calculate the float for the bar fill amount. So we need to normalize the value to fit inside the bar values. So we take the fill value and we reduce it by the bar value min, and then we divide it by the size of the bar. So we divide it by the bar value max minus bar value min. So let's say this is the first bar, which means it goes from 20 to 40, and we are giving it a fill value of 30. So the bar fill amount will be 30 minus the 20, which is the bar value min, which means this is 10, and then the bar has a size of 40 minus 20, which is 20, so we have 10 divided by 20, so this one will be 0.5. So if we send a 30, then the second bar will be half filled. So after that, we simply need to do set the fill amount to the bar fill amount. All right, so now let's see if all of this math is correct. For testing, let's go all the way up here, and after we set up our bar, let's use set fill value. Now, since we have 5 bars on a total of 100, that means each bar occupies a value of 20. So if we put for a fill value of 50, we should see the first 2 helmets in red, then a bar half filled, and all the other helmets in gray. So let's see if that is correct. And yep, there it is. We have 2 red helmets, then the bar is half filled, and the others are in gray. All right, so it seems all of our math is correctly working. Now let's test with an increasing value. So let's use the same thing we used in here. Now the fill amount has to go up to 100, so let's increase the speed by a bit. Okay, so in here we are increasing the fill amount by time.delta multiplied by the maximum size, which is 100. And then we divide by 5. So essentially we are going to increase 100 over 5 seconds. And then we simply do set the fill value to this fill amount, and here we can actually start off at 0. All right, so let's see if all of our bars correctly fill up in 5 seconds. Yep, there it is. There's 1 fill, 2 fill, 3, 4, and 5, and yep, as you can see, they all filled correctly. The bar goes in once it reaches the end, the helmet turns to red, then it passes on to filling the next one, and so on and so forth. So our logic is completely correct, and we have our various bars being filled up one by one. Now the way we set up our code makes it very simple to go the other way, so let's simply try decreasing the value. So in here, let's start off at 100 and decrease it by this. So it should be emptied after 5 seconds. Yep, there it is. It starts off full and goes down, down, and down, and down until 0. And as you can see, they start off in red, then turn off into gray. So there you have it. We created from scratch the Mercenary Bar as it's used in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. As always, you can download the project files and utilities from unitycodemonkey.com. If you have any questions, post them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Subscribe for more videos and I'll see you next time.